This is the Roots meter, the world's finest rotary positive displacement meter. As with any precision instrument, proper care and maintenance are necessary for optimum performance. This video is designed to illustrate correct repair procedures for individuals with a basic understanding of the Roots meter. This video is to be used as an instructional guide. Always follow your company's procedures. For demonstration purposes, we're using a line mount 3M175 Roots meter. The nameplate identifies several important items about our meter, such as the direction of flow, the model number, the complete bill of material, maximum operating pressure and meter capacity, and the serial number. The nameplate is located on the timing gear end of the meter or between the differential taps. These are the differential taps. We'll use them as a point of reference. The inlet is located at the top of the meter, and the outlet is, of course, below. The accessory unit is located to the left. Behind the accessory unit is the magnet drive-in cover. The right side is the timing gear end. The flanged area is the cylinder. Several special tools are required to conduct a repair. These tools are used for repairing 1.5M through 5M meters. The 7M, 11M, and 16M meters require some different tools. Before you start the teardown, make sure that all of the oil has been drained from the 3 oil sumps. Now you are ready to disassemble the meter. First, mark the end covers, head plate, and cylinder with a marker, or a scribe if the meter is to come in contact with solvents, to assist you later when you reassemble the meter. Mark one end with a single line, the other end with double lines. Now remove the access plug located on the timing gear end cover. Remove the 6 socket cap screws and washers with a 3/16" hex hand driver from the flange of the timing gear end cover. Remove the cover. Make sure the O-ring is carefully removed from the head plate groove. Now you can use the timing gear end cover as a support while you disassemble the meter. Next, remove the mag-coupled accessory unit cover and internal gasket or O-ring. Remove the cap screws that hold the adapter plate to the magnet drive-in cover. Don't forget the cap screw that anchors the accessory unit to the cover. Remove the interface gasket located between the adapter plate and the magnet drive cover. To remove the magnet drive-in cover, follow the same procedures used to remove the timing gear end cover. Lightly tap opposite sides of the magnet drive-in cover with a plastic mallet to help loosen the hold. Now remove the magnet drive-in cover, pulling the unit straight out, using caution not to damage the temperature probe well. You may feel some resistance. Carefully remove the O-ring. In this cover, O-rings are used between the machine surface of the cover and the mag cup and temperature probe well to maintain pressure integrity of the basic meter body. Any part outside of the magnet end cover of the meter will be non-pressurized. The purpose of the magnet wheel assembly is to drive the gear reduction accessory unit. To remove the magnet wheel assembly, loosen the 1/16" socket head set screw. You'll notice that the hub is located on the back side of the assembly near the main bearing. The hub acts as an inner bearing clamp for the drive impeller. At the open end of the female magnet wheel assembly, remove the flathead socket cap screw which holds the assembly to the end of the impeller shaft. Once the screw has been removed, pull the magnet wheel assembly from the shaft. In some cases, the threaded puller may be required to remove this assembly. Insert the cap screw provided in the tool kit into the end of the impeller shaft. The threaded puller rod should be positioned into the head of the socket head cap screw. Rotate the puller shaft until the assembly is pulled against the head of the cap screw. Then remove the puller and cap screw from the end of the impeller shaft. Now go to the end of the other impeller shaft and remove the socket head cap screw and inner bearing clamp. To prevent the impeller shafts from rotating, insert a non-metallic object between the impeller and cylinder wall to lock the impellers. Before removing the bearing clamp plates, make sure they are marked so they can be returned to their original location. Remove the bearing clamp plates. Dowel pins are used to position the head plate to the center line of the cylinder bore, so it's important that they be removed with a great deal of care. The proper way to safely remove a dowel pin is to install the puller supplied in the toolkit. Then, use a wrench to hold the threaded rod from turning while turning the hex nut with another wrench. This will apply a constant pulling force to remove the dowel pins from the head plate and cylinder. Rotate the meter 180 degrees so the timing gear end cover can be addressed. The dowel pins at the timing gear end must be removed by pulling them straight out of the head plate and cylinder. At the timing gear end, remove the two gear clamp cap screws and clamps. Then reinsert the cap screws in the impeller shaft. The gear puller should be applied to the gear and the puller screw centered into the reinserted cap screw. Slowly turn the gear puller hex nut clockwise until pressure releases the gear. Caution should be used to avoid damage to the oil slinger and gear teeth. Using the same procedure, remove the other gear. Once the gears have been removed, notice the two external bowed retaining rings next to the bearing inner race. These must also be removed. Using the retaining ring pliers, expand each ring only enough to remove it from its groove and remove it from the end of the shaft. At the timing gear end, there are 4 hold-down cap screws that have seal washers to prevent oil from entering the measuring chamber, securing the head plate to the cylinder. Remove all 4 cap screws, then carefully pull up on the head plate while applying pressure to the end of the impeller shaft. Now remove the head plate O-ring seal. After removal of the driven impeller, which is located closest to the differential taps, mark the large diameter of the shaft for relative position and ease of reassembly in the cylinder. The drive impeller should also be removed and set aside. Turn the meter and address the magnet drive end. Remove the 4 hold-down cap screws and washers. Then carefully remove the head plate from the cylinder. Also carefully remove the O-ring seal. To remove the bearings from the head plate, insert the bearing removal tool from the flat side of the head plate and push the bearing outward. Extra force may be required to free the bearing from the Loctite solution. If any Loctite residue remains in the bearing bore, make sure that it is thoroughly removed. After removing the bearings, remove the 3 small wavy spring washers. It is recommended that all 4 bearings should be replaced any time the meter is repaired. Note the exact number of wavy spring washers located between the bearings and head plate on the magnet drive end. The wavy washers should be kept with the bearing clamp for each location. Repeat the bearing removal procedure on the timing gear end. Note that there are no wavy washers on the timing gear end. Now thoroughly wash all of the parts with approved safety solvent, then use low-pressure compressed air to further clean and dry all parts. Examine the cylinder for light score marks and, if necessary, polish with fine emery paper to remove any raised surfaces that could interfere with impeller movement. Next, check the head plates for roughness. A fine mill file can be used to detect and remove any rough surfaces. Check the impeller strips for score marks. Any light score marks should be polished with emery cloth so they do not extend above the surrounding surface. Any deep gouge areas may indicate the impeller shaft has been bent. Detailed inspection procedures are included in the shop manual. Replace the O-ring seal for the temperature probe well in the magnet drive head plate. The two identical impellers have tapered shafts at the timing gear end. A flat end is located at the magnet drive end of the impeller shaft where the set screw will make contact. There are 4 O-rings which are placed on both sides of each head plate. Components located at the magnet drive end include a magnet drive end cover, O-ring seals, bearings, wavy spring washers that are positioned in the bearing bore, shim pack clamps for the outer bearing race, an inner bearing clamp positioned on the driven impeller shaft, a magnet wheel assembly that also acts as an inner bearing clamp on the drive impeller, magnet drive end head plate, 2 long dowel pins, 4 cap screws, and seal washers. Components located at the timing gear end include timing gear end cover and access plug, O-ring, the driven gear clamp and screw, slotted gear clamp and screw for the drive impeller, 2 bowed retaining rings, a matched set of timing gears with the oil slinger on the drive impeller shaft, 4 cap screws with seal washers, 2 short dowel pins, timing gear end head plate. During reassembly, verify all replacement parts are correct for the meter bill of material. Again, use your timing gear end cover with the flange facing upward to accept the magnet drive head plate for assembly of the timing gear end of the meter. Position the magnet drive end head plate, using the reference marks made earlier, on the flange of the timing gear end cover so the smooth side is facing up. Then, insert the short end of the driven impeller into the appropriate head plate position in reference to disassembly. Insert the drive impeller at a 90-degree angle to the driven impeller. Now place the timing gear end head plate down over the extending impeller shafts. Your reference mark should indicate the top inlet position for the head plate. Insert the bearings into the bearing bore with the shield side facing the impellers. Install the external retaining ring, bowed side up, in the groove on each shaft, using the external retaining ring pliers. Utilize the retaining ring positioning tool to insert the bowed retaining ring in the machined groove. This procedure applies tension to the inner race of the main shaft bearing to hold it in place on the shaft. Now examine the precision-matched timing gears. Install them to the impeller shaft with the factory-provided scribe marks aligned and the gear with the oil slinger placed on the drive impeller shaft. Install the slotted gear clamp on the end of the drive impeller shaft, insert the socket head cap screw, and tighten until it makes slight contact with the gear clamp, being careful not to over-tighten. Install the gear clamp with the recessed side toward the timing gear on the driven impeller shaft. Insert the socket head cap screw and lightly tighten to allow rotational movement of the driven timing gear. Remove the head plate with the impellers attached to it from the other head plate. Then pick up the cylinder and determine the top referencing marks made before disassembling the meter. Now position the inlet flange of the cylinder to the left with the outlet flange of the cylinder to the right. Lightly coat the O-rings with a high viscosity lubricant and install one into the groove in the flat or cylinder side of the timing gear end head plate. The purpose of the lubricant is to retain the O-ring in position while assembling the head plate to the cylinder. Insert the impellers in the cylinder. Next, lubricate the threads of the 4 socket head cap screws to prevent galling, then install them with the seal washers. Tighten the cap screws evenly, then visually align the dowel pin holes in the head plate with the pin holes in the cylinder. Notice that the dowel pins are threaded only on one end. Using a hex head cap screw supplied with the toolkit, insert it into the dowel pin and rotate it 5 or 6 turns. Then place the dowel pin into the head plate's dowel pin hole and using a plastic mallet, drive the pin through the head plate and into the meter cylinder until it bottoms out. Remove the cap screw and repeat the process with remaining dowel pins. Now torque the cap screws to approximately 30 inch-pounds. Do not exceed 30 inch-pounds. Excessive torque can strip the threads in the cylinder. Turn the cylinder 180 degrees from left to right. This will position the cylinder with the inlet to the right. Now begin assembly of the magnet drive end of the meter. Locate the mark to prevent placing the head plate on upside down. The clearance hole for the temperature well is always at the inlet of the meter. There are 3 oil drain ports in the head plate and should be positioned to allow oil drainage from either top or side inlet configuration. Next, install a lubricated O-ring into the O-ring groove on the flat side of the magnet drive end head plate. Position the head plate over the extended impeller shafts and against the cylinder, with the temperature probe well holed to the top of the cylinder at the inlet. Lubricate the 4 hex head cap screws and install them with the seal washers through the head plate and into the cylinder. Tighten these cap screws so the head plate O-ring is compressed, but the head plate can move. Insert the long dowel pins using the same procedure as previously mentioned. These dowel pins will extend from the surface of the head plate to align the magnet drive end cover. Retighten the 4 cap screws to ensure proper end clearance adjustment. Insert the wavy washers into the bearing bore of the magnet drive head plate, installing the exact number of wavy washers that was removed. Make sure that the new bearings rotate freely before installation and position the bearings with the shield side inward toward the impellers. Check the bearings by pushing down on each side of the outer race to compress the wavy washers. Release the pressure from the outer race, making sure the bearing race moves back to its original position. If not, the bearing is too tight in the bearing bore. In this case, remove the bearing and clean the head plate bore or outer race of the bearing. Locate the bearing clamp plate and shims that were removed from the magnet wheel location. Position them over the bearing at this location and install the 3 socket head cap screws. Position the other bearing clamp plate and shims over the other main shaft bearing. Then tighten the 3 cap screws. After both the bearing clamp plate and shims have been installed, check to make sure the meter rotates. If there is a constant drag, the impellers are rubbing the head plate. Next, check thrust-in clearances. If impellers are dragging the head plate, press and turn the impeller. Since the bearing clamp has not been put on the drive end of the meter, if you press on this end, you will feel the impellers drag the head plate. Now, put the center screw down in the shaft first. After all the cap screws are tightened, the end clearance can be checked. If necessary, the end clearance can be adjusted by using shims under the bearing clamp plate. The combination of shims can change the clearance as little as 1/1000th of an inch. Now, set the set screw. Be sure it goes completely down onto the shaft and is solid against the bearing because it serves as a bearing clamp. Spin the wheel and notice if the meter is turning. If so, it is close to tolerance as far as the clearances on the timing. Next, check for clearances between the lobes using feeler gauges at these settings. Blue, 5/1000ths, tan, 4/1000ths, green, 3/1000ths, red 2/1000ths. What you are checking here is the clearance between the two lobes of the impellers. The feeler gauge will go inside the meter for clearance check as the two impellers pass each other. Now, check front and back clearance and clearance on every side through the inlet and outlet. Begin with the red 2/1000th size and check for tight spots. If necessary, use an oversized feeler gauge in tight areas. Since one of the timing gears is locked tightly on the shaft and the other is loose, put the feeler gauge back in the impeller so it can be forced to shift. It will actually turn inside the loose gear. Check the clearances again. This is the area where most of your time will be spent. Consider quality control time for the work you've just completed. Make sure the gear is on tight. Spin the gears. They should continue to turn as the meter is moved if the gears are properly adjusted. Apply Loctite to the outer race of the bearings on both ends of the meter. Also, lubricate the bearings with a small amount of Roots meter oil. Install the end cover at the magnet drive end. Install the O-ring into the head plate groove. Position the end cover and install the cap screws. Now install the end cover at the timing gear end of the meter. Install the O-ring into the head plate groove. Position the end cover against the head plate using the marks made before disassembly as a reference. Install the cap screws. Make sure the impellers turn. Now install the accessory unit. It is not necessary to replace the cap screw used to anchor the adapter plate assembly to the end cover of the meter. At this point, make sure the impellers are still free and turning. If so, replace the access plug in its hole. You've just completed a Roots meter teardown and assembly. If you have questions that are not answered in this video or our repair manual, call our repair service hotlines in Europe, the United Kingdom, Canada, and the United States. Meter repair classes and complete meter repair services are available at our Houston facility. Special repair services can also be arranged at the end user's location.